Welcome to Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden, mother, and crone, where we look at ourselves and the world through the lens of the 21st century. Hi, and welcome back. I am your hostess, Cindy Murray, and I am here with my co-hosts, Amber Garvin and Kristen Hessler.
Hello.
Hey. And we are coming back to the subject of the Barbie movie, which we've seen. And if you were tuned into yesterday's episode, this is a continuation of that. So you might want to go back and listen to that one if you're just now stepping into this. But we got to go see the Barbie movie last week. Actually, it was the week before last, I guess it was. And then we got so much out of it, or saw so many topics of discussion in that movie.
We went back and saw it again.
We did. We went back and saw it again, and I got even more things out of it, I think. I probably will watch it again when it streams.
I think that's the only movie I've ever paid twice to see in the theater.
Oh, that is.
I'm pretty sure it was me too. Well, I mean, except for like when they did a Twilight or a Harry Potter thing, like years later, and Star Wars. Like if they had to go back to see 1 and 2.
Star Wars Phantom Menace is still the movie that I have seen the most in the theater. I think I saw it I can't say I paid for it all of those times. I think I saw it like 5 or 6 times.
I've seen episode 4, the original Star Wars, several times in the movie theater. But it was all, I saw it originally. And then I saw it again when the next movie came out. And then I saw those two again when the third movie came out. So
They always run them again when they come out with more.
And I did that with, I think, one of the Twilight movies. And I think I did that with a Harry Potter movie. But this one, I mean, literally a week apart. We went to see it, on a Tuesday. And we went to the next Tuesday to go see it again. And I think it's because there were just so much to unpack there, and we started recording this, and we got to about an hour-long mark or close to it, and decided we just need to bust this up into another part, which we sometimes do. And so you're catching now the second half of this discussion.
So if you missed the first half, go listen to it and come back.
Yeah. And if we will say that this does contain spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie and you don't want it to be spoiled, go watch the movie first, then watch the first episode, and then watch this, or listen to the first episode. Listen, not watch. I'm not going to see you later.
Listen, Linda.
And then we'll come back to this one. So, as I said, we talked about a lot of topics on the last one, and one of the questions that I left you with was, how do we fix the problems in our society where the Barbie land is such a polar opposite to the real world? And I wanted to go back and talk about some of those things. In the movie, Ken tries to fix that because Ken is... In Barbie land, Ken is, quote unquote, superfluous. He is an accessory to Barbie. He is not a character.
Barbary.
Okay. He is an accessory to Barbie. He is not a character of any real significance in the Barbie world. So
it's like and Ken.
It's Barbie and Ken. And there's a whole subtext, a B plot, if you want to talk about that, about Ken's journey through all of that, and we'll talk about some of that too. But in the story, Ken learns about patriarchy in the real world, and he sees it, and he doesn't really like the way it's presented there, and he can't just jump into the patriarchy in the real. I know.
You're having some issues.
I am having some speaking issues. He can't just jump into the patriarchy the way it is in the real world. So he decides he will just take it back to Barbie Land, because Barbie Land is basically the complete and polar opposite of the real world.
Starting patriarchy from scratch.
Right. And he's going to start patriarchy from scratch and do it the right way.
In his small mind experience.
Yeah,
right.
like,
Okay. And we'll talk about that too. So, but what I'm trying to get at is that the Barbie Land is exactly the opposite of the real world. So Barbie owns everything. She has a house. We don't even know where Ken lives.
Barbie doesn't even know where Ken lives.
Barbie doesn't even know where Ken lives. Every night is girls' night. There's never a boys' night. We don't know what happens to the Kens after they leave the party. The Barbies have all the jobs. Kens don't have a job.
They just beach.
They beach, or they're
on the beach.
They're on the beach or whatever. And so when Ken goes back to Barbie Land, he changes it into Kendom. Or Kenland.
I think it's Kingdom.
I think he's called it both in there. And he kind of does things the opposite, but in a very satirical way. So he turns the Barbie house into Ken's Mojo Dojo Dream House.
Casa House.
Mojo Dojo Casa
House. And it's got horses and he drives a Hummer, and but the Kens still don't have a job. The Kens, all they're doing is waiting around for the girls, the Barbies,
to do stuff for them.
So that it's all about drinking brewskis and playing volleyball with the Barbies, cheering them on.
Skewed up version of the patriarchy, like he didn't go back and
he doesn't really understand the patriarchy. He really wanted Barbie to pay attention to him, and that's what he did. So he turned the tables, and they're actually kind of in this skewed version of where women are sometimes also, where we don't really have a place or whatever, but when Barbie comes back and I think he rejects her. She offers to be his girlfriend or something. I'm not even sure exactly where this came in the movie. Maybe you guys can correct me.
No,
you don't know what I'm fixing to say.
Oh. I was just going to say that, like, he rejects her later.
I know he does later. But there was a point where he turned to her and he said, "How does that make you feel?" Right? So he turned everything upside down. He was going to change all the rules of Barbie Land. He was going to turn it more to what he thought the patriarchy should be, which is anti-Barbie. But the whole point of it was really to get back at Barbie for what Barbie had done to him, which was ignore him.
And Barbie didn't even realize
that's what she was
subconscious.
Right.
She treated him like a doormat.
Well, she did, but as I said, in Barbie Land, Ken was superfluous. He was just Ken. It wasn't Barbiedom wasn't about Ken. It was about empowering girls, and so Ken was just an add-on. Now, I know we've talked about, we've mentioned that some of us played with Ken a little differently, but it wasn't. It wasn't intended that Barbie would be dependent on Ken as a man or whatever. Barbie was meant to just have him as a side piece.
Yeah, you said it earlier, and it made sense the way you said it. He was an accessory.
He was an accessory.
Just like all of the things that
like the
you
cars and the trucks.
Barbie.
It's like Barbie needs a boyfriend. If Barbie's going to be complete,
it's
she
an
needs a boyfriend.
accessory for the story.
Barbie
that you
has
play
the
out
perfect
with Barbie.
job. The perfect boyfriend is a perfect accessory for Barbie.
Right. And
did Kens even have when
Mattel
Kens were in school,
Kens,
when Kens were on the shelf? Do they even have a Dr. Ken or
no
Beach?
They're all, there was beach. They called him Beach, but it was Malibu. It was Malibu.
I mean,
Ken.
I'm not talking about in the movie. I'm talking about just Ken's.
No,
on the
I
shelf.
am talking Malibu Barbie and Malibu Ken were character dolls when I was a kid. And there were some Kens who were beach Ken or whatever, but
fancy dressed Ken,
camping Ken, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember
Sugar
what
Daddy
any of them
Ken.
were. Well, there were those, and they were rejected. Sugar's Daddy Ken and the Magic Earring Ken. When Barbie and the Rockers, there was a rocker Ken. That may have been the Magic Earring Ken. I don't know. I can't remember.
no telling.
But really, the whole thing was always about Barbie, and in Ken's lived his purpose in life was to be noticed by Barbie. And so he was only having a good day if he got noticed by Barbie. That's what they talk about in the movie. And so his way of combating that was to do something where Barbie didn't get noticed, where he did the opposite, where Barbie was the superfluous thing, where Ken was in power. And then he turns to her and says, "How does that make you feel?" And I think that is an analogy for what we all sometimes do in society when we feel that we have been wronged. We go that polar opposite direction and try to make up for it. And that is not the answer either.
Turning the table to punish those who oppress you
is not the answer. So, and that's kind of where we left off with that before, because but I thought it was really interesting because when Ken was in control, there was a couple of scenes in there where Barbie's in her car, and the song that comes on is the Indigo Girls, closer to fine. I think
went to the mountain. Oh wait, I went to the doctor.
I went to the mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's all about kind of finding your place or whatever. But when Ken takes over, that song on the radio changes to Matchbox 20's Push. And I don't know if you're very familiar with those lyrics, but they're very misogynistic.
Yeah.
They are. Let me find, and again, I will. I apologized for this on the previous section of this. We took a lot of notes, and so I've got a lot of paper, and it's rattling around here and stuff. But here's the just some of the words from Matchbox 20's Push. And I'm a little bit angry. Well, this ain't over. No, not here. Not while I still need you around. You don't owe me. We might change, yeah. We just might feel good. I want to push you around. Well, I will. Well, I will. I want to push you down. Well, I will. Well, I will. I want to take you for granted. And all of the lyrics in here is all about him taking retaliation against her for rejecting him, basically. And that's basically what Ken was doing as well. He was retaliating against Barbie. He really didn't want the patriarchy. He just wanted to retaliate against Barbie and make her feel the way he's felt all these years. And thus he said, "How does that make you feel?" And I think in society, oftentimes we do that. When women feel objectified, we want to do the same thing to men.
Or other women.
Or to other women sometimes. But we also want to do it to men and then say, "How did that make you feel?" But honestly, they feel differently about it because it is different. We do it in all social circumstances. We do that with racial inequalities. We do that with sexual inequalities. We do that with religious things. It covers everything. And, it's the idea that retaliating answers anything. And retaliation never helps. It just swings it in the opposite direction. And so part of my question to everyone was, how do you fix that? We talked about the idea of Eckhart Tolle about having ego, that letting go of the ego helps us let go of that need to retaliate, for one, and maybe perspective, seeing things from that other person's point of view. But one of the things that I noted that they said in here was that, and I can't remember who said it. Maybe y'all can chime in. Humans create things like patriarchy and Barbie to deal with how uncomfortable it is to be human. So the idea of patriarchy, maybe women allowed patriarchy to come about in the first place in some ways, or we allowed it to continue to exist because it's uncomfortable to be in those positions. And also, Barbie is our way of expressing our own strengths and fragilities. Not just strengths, but also fragilities. There's this whole system has been created to answer to a problem that has plagued us for a long time, that women are subjugated because of our physical differences, because men perceive us as emotional because of our hormonal changes, because we're fragile when we're pregnant, and you know, that the need to protect our progeny, you know, and so forth. But those things have existed in, you know, we've built up all these constructs to deal with things, but now we don't know how to unravel it. We've built this society where women are protected by men, but it also means that women are oppressed by men. So how do we unravel it? And I think the point is that you can't do it in a day. You can't just make things the opposite and make it okay. You have to find that difference in the middle somehow.
I think it's just like that little piece by piece, you know, incorporating women into the work world.
Right.
And then allowing women into politics, you know, by letting us vote first, right?
Well,
you wouldn't
it's not
start off with a woman who's never voted before and making her president.
Yeah, right. You have to,
it's not going to happen now. Right. Like maybe generations from now, it'll happen slowly, but change happens slowly.
But I think that's what disheartens a lot of people, is that they want instant change, and I don't think you can find instant change.
You have to be the change you want to see in the world.
Right. And by slowly making those small changes, they add up to big changes. The small change in my lifetime was, one of the small changes was the invention of Barbie, because she allowed girls to daydream about being something other than a baby doll's mother. Mm-hmm. And so it was a small change, but look at, among the other small changes that have been made, look at all the great change that has occurred since the 1950s. And if you look at the women's liberation movement, the Equal Rights Amendment that failed multiple times, you know, the whole idea of that was that they wanted sudden, drastic change, and the patriarchy, as we're going to call it, you know, shot it down. And so did a lot of women, because women didn't want that drastic change either. It wasn't helpful to just like swing the actual opposite direction. So the answer is to put in place little changes, little by little, and then it grows into a place where someday it will be more equal, more equitable, more balanced between both. And I think part of that too is realizing that, as I think I said before, taking it, just because you're giving one set of people power does not mean you're taking that power from someone else. And a lot of the people who fight against giving people power are the ones who are afraid that that power is being taken away from them. And I don't think there is a limitation on how much power the world can hold. Does that make sense? like, I think everyone can be empowered without taking power away from someone else. Maybe not all in the same ways, but power nonetheless. So, in the end of the, towards the end of the movie, the Barbie president tells Ken, because they all agree that all Barbie land the way it was is not the answer. Kendom was not the answer. The answer is somewhere in between, and it's a slow progress towards that. And so she agrees to give the Kens as much power as in Barbie land as real women have in the real world. So as that changes, as more women have more power, then the Kens actually have more power too. I don't know. What do you think of that? Do you think that there is anything else we can do to help ease that transition into, so that we're not trying to swing it one way or the other? We don't have to beat down men or other women,
right,
to be powerful women.
I think that just look around in your world, in your area or your neighborhood, somewhere small, close. Start off small and identify where the inequalities are. And it doesn't have to just be about women's inequalities, but other inequalities. Because when
I think so too.
one, oppressed fights for the other, there's unity. Right? And, take a look at where you might feel like there's an inequality and find the root, the beginnings of where you could gain a foot. So, like I said, for instance, women in presidency, you can't see a woman being a president if women don't get out and vote.
Right.
And be involved in politics.
And make their own choices.
Is voting.
Because a lot of women still vote what their husbands vote.
Right. And you
have to be informed yourself.
Just suddenly become a female politician. Those women started off with voting and sharing their opinion in their neighborhood.
Right.
In their city, in
maybe
their town.
Getting a law degree, being an activist in something that is important.
Do the things that you can do.
Right.
That you do have access to, and doing them well and showing other people how to do them.
And those open up more opportunities for more things that you can do. Always. Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is just lack of information. Like, it's not shared enough. It's not told enough. It's not passed down from mother to daughter enough.
I think so. I think that's true too.
Like, parents aren't saying, women, especially mothers, are not saying to their daughters, hey, you can make a difference. You don't have to be just some man candy or whatever.
Right.
You can go out and make a difference. You can vote. You can become a politician. You can do all of these great things. And it starts at home. Mothers have to be telling their kids.
Small community. Start off at the base community of you and your friends, or you and your home.
And friends need to support each other as well. Like, if one friend has a dream of being the next female president and another friend, like maybe a more popular friend, says, you'll never be president, you're not pretty enough, then that's where it starts. Then that girl starts thinking, well, I'm not pretty enough.
We cannot continue to cut each other down as women. We have to support each other. We are not in competition with each other. And I hate that women think that they are. And that goes back to the scene in the movie with the Kens. What did the Barbies do to regain power over the Kens? They turned the Kens against themselves. They made them jealous of themselves to the point that they had a fight.
And they were so busy fighting with each other that they missed out on what was really going on.
And that's how it happens in the real world.
It absolutely is.
Women are so busy fighting each other and fighting over
the petty
something
stuff.
petty that you
That
know,
we
the
miss the important
patriarchy
stuff. Yeah.
exists. Like, we miss the important
We're
stuff.
so busy being catty about what color of nail polish someone said, or whether they combed their hair properly, or whatever, that we're missing the important issues,
Like voting.
Like, you know, well, and I will say this: I am not. I never was a big fan of Hillary Clinton or Michelle Obama, but that was one of the things that people used to tear them both down, was their looks and their sense of style and things like that. And it's like, why are we tearing them down? But they have nothing to do with.
It's like any woman in the public eye. When Dolly Parton was mentioned earlier, like and she's big on women's rights, and her whole career has been torn down.
Yeah, yeah. Because she has big breasts.
The way
and
she
dresses-
looks.
The way she
Yeah.
because of the way she looks. Not because of anything she did
And she's
or
beautiful.
said. She's beautiful and she's voluptuous, and women have cut her down. And men make fun of her. Men ogle and make fun of her.
So here's another thing. You guys talked about mothers raising their daughters and lifting them up, but it's not just about the mom's responsibility. It's the father's responsibility.
Absolutely.
And it's not just your daughters, but also your sons. Teaching your son that girls also can do the same things that boys can do.
Yes.
This
Teaching
is-
your son not to ogle women or to objectify them.
Exactly.
Yes.
And telling your husband to lift up his daughter and tell
And
her
help.
that she can be anything that she wants to
Right.
be.
If he values her as a person, not just as his princess.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll say, like, I was raised in a small town, and I was told my whole life that my job was to marry a rich man. Like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, like, or maybe not even a rich man. My job was to get married and have kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nothing else mattered other than I should get married and have kids. I should lose weight so I'll find a husband to have kids.
Right. I think one thing that my mother did do right was, well, sort of, was that she tried to make me independent of a man. But she went about it the wrong way, and it kind of backfired. But my parents both insisted for years and years and years that I take cosmetology school, because cosmetology was offered at my high school free of charge as a vocational thing. It takes 2 years to do it in high school. It's lots and lots of hours, but you're doing it concurrently while you're going to high school. And their reasoning was that they had a friend whose daughter was a cosmetologist, and she made really good money. That was their words for it. And, she was pretty independent. And I think that they thought, by pushing me into that career, which is, by the way, a female-based career path, that they were helping me to be independent. But at the same time, I really wanted to go to school to be an audio engineer. They had opened up a program at one of the local junior colleges that offered an audio engineering program, and I wanted to work in the music industry, which was dominated by men. And they never even considered that an option, and instead tried to talk me into getting into the cosmetology, or alternatively, I wanted to go to a 4-year college and get a degree. But they always said, well, we can't afford that, so why don't you go get your cosmetology license, and then you can work your way through college.
I was told I should either become a teacher or a nurse, which were fields primarily dominated by women. That was something that women did.
Yeah.
And yes, I became a teacher, but my original college degree is in television production.
Yeah, at
And
the
that's
same
what
school.
I wanted to do. Same school,
Yeah,
yes.
same school. And in fact, all three of us went to the same junior college to start with. So,
Yeah.
but in different fields, but all three fields
We're male dominated.
male-dominated
fields, yes.
And I do think, like I said, I think my parents had the right idea. They just went about it the wrong way. I think if they had listened to me a little more, they would have realized that, and if they had supported me a little more, I could have gone into a male-dominated field. It would have been hard.
For
but
sure.
It would have been hard, but I could have done it. And so, but because they pushed me into a field that I really didn't want to be in, it was almost like a waste of my time. And I did work as a cosmetologist for a short time after I graduated and got my license, but I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And I felt like I wasted my time. I could have been taking different courses at school, doing different things that might have made me a more viable candidate for a 4-year university or to take a different degree or whatever. And I might have done something entirely different with my life. And instead, I wound up married, divorced with a kid, and then I went to college and did what I really wanted to do. And at the same time, I was still very dependent on my husband, my second husband, and my first husband, to support me, because I never got to that point where I was independent, because the independence doesn't come from what your career is. It comes from how you feel about yourself and what you can do with your life. And that part of it was never fed to me. And I think that is important. Like I said, not just from your mother, but from your teachers, your father, your other surrounding adults in your life. And I think we need to work harder on supporting that. And there's a lot of programs out there for girls, especially for STEM. They're trying to increase the number of girls in STEM and building up, changing that issue that happens around first grade, where girls start feeling like they're not capable of STEM fields and boys are more favored. And they're trying to combat those things. In fact, I heard about an event here in the Dallas area, I think it was this past weekend, called Black to the Lab. I think they have an event every week or every month, and it's actually trying to encourage Black girls to do scientific exploration and stuff and get into STEM fields. But they actually did a Barbie centered thing to tie in with the movie.
Oh, cool.
And they got to learn the chemistry of lip gloss and things, to show them that even in some of the girl things, there are still STEM aspects involved in that. And you can be interested in makeup and still tie that into a STEM career and, things like that. So it's important to get girls interested in STEM, and you can't do that in the same way that you bring boys into STEM, because boys are naturally drawn to STEM. Girls can be as well, but because of the way we teach STEM, it often excludes girls or minimizes the things that girls are interested in. So I thought that was a really interesting take. I do want to go back to the Ken thing. Ken's journey in the movie, as I said, he kind of has just like Barbie, comes to a different realization about his life, and he wants power the way Barbie has power in Barbie Land. And when I first said that I was going to this movie, my husband told me that he heard this movie was all about, the plot of this movie was about Ken's male fragility. If you've never heard of that term, fragile masculinity is a term that is used to describe the anxiety that is experienced by men who feel that doing certain things causes them to fall short of societal norms of manhood. So, anything that effeminizes men, if they have anxiety over doing like men wearing pink, then that makes their masculinity fragile if they feel any anxiety about that or whatever. And it's actually a very real issue right now, and a lot of guys talk about this. It's a hot topic, actually, is what it is. And it's the notion that the idea that anything that is slightly feminine makes you less of a man. And men have been struggling with this for a long time. And that's where in this, in the Barbie movie, Ken doesn't have a real job. And he doesn't have a home or a purpose outside of Barbie. And then he gets out into the real world and finds that men run everything. But he questions his own, he's not empowered or whatever. And so that, a lot of people think that was a big underlying message in the movie. And, Ken does come to some of that, but one of the answers to that problem was that towards the end, Barbie had a long, deep conversation with Ken, about what he wanted and things like that. And he talked about, he doesn't even know who he is without Barbie. And in the same way, a lot of men don't know who they are without that stereotypical maleness. Does that make sense? And so, the idea is that men have to come to terms, and women too, with who we are outside of our gender roles.
Well, you don't need someone to make you happy.
Right.
You don't need another person to make you happy.
And you don't need to control another person to have power. You don't need to oppress another person in order to have power. So think, the idea, going back to the how do we change things, is that we have to learn what it is that makes ourselves tick and why we feel that need to control people or to oppress people or subjugate people.
Or why we feel weak.
Or why we feel weak. Why does that make you feel weak? And in looking at those things and releasing those phobias, in releasing those things because they don't serve us anymore. Those gender roles don't necessarily serve us very well either. And so if we can let go of those happily, not have them ripped away by some sudden change of now you must think like this or now you must think like that, but strip away the things that aren't serving you. And what makes you feel weak is not serving you. So if something makes you feel weak, look at why it makes you feel weak and let that go. Find another way to deal with that, I guess is.
So one of the things that Ken did that I really liked was when he realized, that he didn't need the things in his life to be who he was.
Right.
He throughout the movie, he changes his clothes multiple times, but he gets very severe in his masculine clothes towards the end. And I loved his outfit. I thought it was pretty cool. He had like this fur coat on with like a
he looked like Macklemore.
Yeah.
Well, it was a Sylvester Stallone thing. There was a whole thing about Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, he saw that.
Influences that he got from, being manly. So he's wearing this fur coat, and that fur coat to him symbolized manliness. So that's where you have to strip away the symbolism that you've placed.
Right.
That pink shirt symbolizes something to you, you have to remove the symbolism in your mind of what that is, because it's just a shirt. It is just clothing to protect your skin from the sun.
And it's just a color.
And it's just a color.
And I know a lot of guys who wear pink and purple and look great in it, and lots of girls who wear blue. Although girls, it's weird because we have this thing about guys not wearing pink, or we did in the past.
Right. Who made that up?
I know. But girls have always worn blue.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been okay. So I don't understand that. But yeah, you have to let go of those things that quote unquote emasculate, and ask yourself, why does that make you feminine or masculine? You know,
same thing with like a women wearing short haircut.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, there's still a lot of women who are very anti-short hair.
Well, I mean, it still carries a stigma of women that have short hair are manly, or it's just, I have short hair, Kristen has short hair. Right. You know, it's just naturally assumed that we're lesbians because we have short hair.
Yeah. Well, I
don't care about my personal,
or you don't care about your personal appearance,
about your look.
Yeah. So there was a girl in high school, and I apologize to her if I had. Well, I probably did have part of this because that was what people did. People still do. She dressed in t-shirts and flannel shirts. This is back in the late 70s, early 80s. Flannel was not a cool grunge thing. This was
pre-grunge. Yeah.
This is pre-grunge. So this is what guys wore. She wore t-shirts, flannel. She had really short hair. She wore jeans and sometimes hiking boots type shoes. So she was very much not stereotypical female. She was what we would have called very masculine. And because of that, people made a lot of assumptions about her. And they called her a lot of derogatory names, which we're not going to say because we don't want to give those names credence. So, but you can imagine what those names were. But she was identified as being a lesbian just because she wore masculine styled clothing instead of feminine looking clothing. Now, those assumptions are made about her. The same type of assumptions were made about men
wearing pink
shirts, purple, wearing bling.
Sparkles. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Sparkle. Yeah. Anything sparkly, blingy.
Oh, long hair and earrings.
All these things. Wearing pink is effeminate. Wearing sparkles is feminine. I talk to women who scrapbook all the time about how they don't put bling or pink or purple or flowers on scrapbook pages for their boys. And I'm like, why not? Boys like flowers too.
They really do.
They do. My son's favorite color was purple. My favorite color as a little girl was blue. So the idea that how we dress, the way we look, or whatever makes us who we are, we need to let go of those concepts. And they don't make us more feminine or more masculine or whatever. We are who we are as individuals. And, you know, wearing short hair as a woman does not make you masculine. Wearing long hair as a man does not make you feminine. And that was where Ken was. You know, he struggled with that. He brought all these masculine things in. But when he realized that he could be who he is without Barbie, and that he didn't need these, what he thought were masculine things to make him be enough.
Yeah, I think he realized that it was a lot of work. All of the things, and I've been really experiencing this with myself and like letting go of things and decluttering and like unidentifying with things, is that, you know, he realized, wow, in order to have this like perception that he was trying to create, this facade. He had all of these things that he had attached to that he had to to use and utilize and wear and act out constantly.
Right.
And he realized, wow, that's a lot of work to pretend something.
Right.
When I could just simply be.
Be who I really am.
Yeah. And
Be
that's
enough.
what I really liked about that was that I resonated with that. Like, I was crying through that whole part about Ken, you know, finding himself. And it wasn't just about, like, accepting his level of masculinity or not, or his worth as a man in a woman's world, or his worth of a man in a men's world. But just because he realized, and it was when he was crying and Barbie was like, "Are you crying? Are you okay?" And he was like, I'm a liberated man. I know crying is not weak.
Yeah. And he came to realize that he can be a man and a guy, and it's not dependent on how Barbie sees him or any of those things. It's all who he just is himself. And she encourages him to go find out who he is. And this is something that I tell girls all the time. I know so many women who can't be alone. Mm-hmm. They're unable to be without a relationship. As soon as they break up with one boyfriend, they're out there looking for another boyfriend to take his place. And they cannot live with being alone. They identify who they are by how they're seen by men, or how they're seen with a man. Mm-hmm. And I always tell them, you cannot be who you truly are until you can do it without anybody else. And why don't you go find who you are, and then and only then will the right man find you, because the right man is out there looking for the right girl. You can't make yourself into the right girl. You have to be the girl that you are, the woman that you are. And then the man that is looking for that girl will find you.
Mm-hmm. And you are not, it's not also just about being in a relationship.
Right.
Some people will go from one thing to the next. Like, they'll move into a house and they're unhappy, so they move again. Mm-hmm. It's not the house that's where you're unhappy. Right. It's something within you. You need to learn to work through those things that you're unhappy about and just stay. Like, I mean, sometimes, yes, there are circumstances where you need to leave, right? Abusive relationships, obviously. Unhealthy places, unsafe environments. But
yes,
other than that, like, if you move into a house and then suddenly you're not happy and so you want to move again, there's a reason why.
Right.
And you are not your girlfriend. You're not your house. You're not your car. You're not your career.
Right. And that was actually there was a quote in the movie where Barbie was saying that. And like I said, you have to find what makes you, because you're not defined by the things that you have, or the things you surround yourself with, or even by the people you surround yourself with. Some people get into certain groups because they want to be identified as that kind of group. It really is about who you are on the inside. And my mother used to say something that I always thought was interesting, when that people who always want to redecorate their house, they're always moving furniture because they're not happy with the way it is. It's a sign of insecurity. And if you think of it in those terms, it really is. If you your furniture is set a certain way, and then all of a sudden you want to move it, it's because you're not secure with where you had it. You're not satisfied with where it was. You feel the need to change something in your life. And it may not even be the furniture is what needs changing. It might be something else that needs changing, like your career.
But that's just the closest thing you can reach.
That's the thing that you're
have
able to
control,
change.
to
So,
have control.
but I know a lot of people who change jobs over and over and over because they will find some little thing that makes them unhappy, and that becomes the whole world to them, and they need to quit it. Or they'll move from relationship to relationship to relationship, and it's not the relationship that makes you unhappy. Like people who what is the word I'm looking for? Serial marriers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Matrimony or something.
Yeah, there's another word for it.
Yeah.
My words are not coming to me right now because I've spent them all up. But people who get married over and over and over again to different people, but they always find some flaw with the other person. And then they have to, divorce them and marry somebody. And then they go immediately and marry somebody else. And it's like, the thing you're not happy with is not that spouse. The thing you're not happy with is you. You need to find what it is that's making you not happy, because happiness does not come from external things. Happiness comes from inside you. And by changing all of your wardrobe or changing your house or changing your job over and over again, you are not going to ever solve that. So I agree. And, I think you're talking about decluttering and stuff. I think sometimes that process of elimination kind of helps you find what it is you're not happy with, because you keep throwing things out that don't serve you. Eventually you get down to what's left and you're like, oh, well, maybe that's what I don't like. So
yeah,
I don't know. Obviously there's a ton of stuff to keep unpacking, and we didn't even touch on a lot of it. And do any of those things resonate with you, Amber?
Well, yeah, like being who you are on the inside and not needing somebody else to be happy. Yes, that definitely resonates with me.
I think it comes up to a phrase we commonly use, to not dim your light. Don't dim to fit in, too. I think that's another common little thing. I think the three of us are learning to be ourselves, to be who we are without.
I feel like I do that often, and I still shrink back to that, dimming my light to fit in, like shrinking myself to make myself more digestible.
Yeah.
For other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people my whole life have shushed me, told me to not be so loud, not be so myself, not be so much, that I have dimmed myself in a lot of ways. And my friend Stacy, she asked me, I know with a lot of like this wedding planning and stuff that I've been doing, like one thing I do realize is that I can't please everybody. Like I can't make everybody satisfied. One person is going to hate it no matter what.
Yes.
And, Stacy said to me, she was like, what happened to the strong Amber that I used to know? And I said, well, she was beat down by a narcissistic ex-husband and an overbearing grandma.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to any of my family members that are listening to this.
Amber, there's one Barbie we have not talked about.
Oh gosh, yes.
And I want to ask you, did you feel like you related to Weird Barbie at all?
Oh yeah, I'm the weird Barbie in my family. Like
I felt like I totally
relate to
was like that's me.
The Barbie that was drawn on and discarded. Like I finally found someone in my life that cares about, like, that is like Well, y'all do too. You know, like you two and Jason, y'all are, and Stacy, y'all are like the four that love me no matter what. You know, like y'all don't ask anything like of me that I'm not willing to give up. Y'all don't demand that I am a certain way or be a certain way. You know, and like I definitely identified a lot with weird Barbie because I felt that way my whole life, like
Yeah.
off and apart and weird.
Right. One of the things that I noticed, and it hasn't been anything that we've talked about on the recording or before, like outside of it, but you know, everybody had a weird Barbie. Everyone on Barbie Land whispered, and everyone kind of whispered about, oh, weird Barbie, right? And she was kind of like cast aside in her own like weird.
She had a weird Barbie dream house.
She had a
weird house in a.
So, you know, when stereotypical Barbie goes to see her for advice, you know, it's immediately known that this Barbie has seen some things, and she also knows a lot more than the other Barbies around her. So it's clear that she's been like awakened. And she's leveled up in some other sense. Like she's more aware that there's another reality.
Yes.
And that she knows that you can go to the other reality, and she knows what it's like to be a broken Barbie, but that you can still survive.
Enlightened Barbie.
And
she
was also very welcoming, which I really liked that about her, because a lot of times in movies they make the ugly one or the damaged one who lives in a castle far away the evil one,
right? Or they're so secluded and private that they don't want the normals to come be part of their world. But she was welcoming and she wanted to help them.
Yeah. And the thing that I noticed was, as the movie went on, weird Barbie got prettier and prettier.
Yes.
Did you notice that?
She did.
I did notice that.
Like
she had less weird stuff in her hair and less drawings on her face.
And then she became like really beautiful because she was unique.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing that we all forget, is that we're not all stereotypical Barbie or President Barbie or
Mermaid Barbie or whatever.
Barbie.
Yeah.
Some of us are weird Barbie, and we have our own purpose in life.
Right.
And I think a lot of times it doesn't matter what our career is, but the one thing that we do the most is we welcome other people, and we are kind
accepting
and
of other people. Yeah.
And we are beautiful too.
Well, and you know, you talk about her having seen more or whatever, and a lot of times, like everybody talked about, everybody has a weird Barbie, you know, because there's always this Barbie that gets drawn on, or their hair messed up and cut off or whatever, and their clothes are all jacked and and all these things, and pretty much all of us, or a lot of us, had one of those dolls, and they talk about it. That's a Barbie that got played with too hard. And you, when you're talking about her having seen things, I'm thinking also in terms of little girls who have been, sometimes those girls that destroy those Barbies, it's because they have seen things.
That was
those
exactly
little girls.
what I thought of is, when I had a Barbie like that, and she was the one that, when I did play with Barbies, she was the one who acted out those feelings that I had.
Right. And you know, that we cut their hair to make them ugly so that they are as ugly as we feel. Or
right, and she was the one that got picked on by the other Barbies. Like, I made that scenario with my Barbies
so that you could be the aggressor.
Relate. Yeah,
you could be the aggressor towards that part,
exactly.
So that you weren't the one getting picked on, you know, for a change. And it is. It's really. I love though that Barbie was such an integral part of the story as well, though. And like you talked about, she was accepting of all the weird Barbies, like the Barbie with the camera in her back, and the dog that pooped.
Yeah.
And the skipper who grew older.
Oh yes, the skipper with the growing boobs, and you know, and the two weird Kens that, and you notice those were the people, those were the Barbies that never got brainwashed by Ken's stuff, because they were immune to it, because what they had experienced, just like Barbie going into the real world, those experiences made them where they weren't susceptible to the
shortcomings of man.
Yeah. And so I did like that part of it. Like I said, this movie has so much in it, and wow, I really could watch it again and still get more stuff out of it, I think, because there's just so much affirmations and learning and things that we all should be doing to support and lift each other up, and paying attention to the things that, how we react to other people, you know, like Barbie ignored Ken, but maybe if she had ignored Ken a little bit less and had realized that what her actions were doing hurt Ken, then maybe she wouldn't have done that in the first place.
Yeah.
Because after she went to the real world, she realized that what she did hurt Ken, and that he had feelings for her and she did not have feelings for him. So maybe just a little more awareness and a little...
Yeah, I think that for her, it was because she wasn't even aware. And I think that's where she becomes aware. Now that you're aware, you can make a change.
You can make a change. And that's where she tried to help him learn to be who he is without her. And so I guess to wrap this up, unless y'all have some other things that you want to talk about, I wanted to talk about the ending.
Mm-hmm.
And how Ken got his ending by being released to go find out who he was.
He was Kenough.
He was Kenough, yes.
Yeah.
But Barbie, you know, somebody suggested, well, Barbie's ending is to fall in love with Ken, because that's what we all think.
Oh,
the happy
yes,
ending is to fall in love.
Endings are always about women falling in love, but that's not
she fell in love with herself.
Well, I think she was already in love with herself.
Well, I mean, she was in love with herself, but she accepted herself.
Right.
She became aware and she accepted herself.
Right. So they were talking about her ending, you know, what is her ending? If it's not to fall in love with Ken, what is the ending for Barbie? And they were talking about how Barbie is really just an ideal, or an ideal, either way, ideal, kind of the same. In this case, she's both, but ideas live on.
Yeah, there is no ending.
There's no ending for an idea, but she needs an ending. She needed an ending. And do we spoiler it? I mean, we're already spoilering. So her ending was to become human. And I don't even think she put those things into words at all. I think she just came to realization as she was talking to the ghost of Ruth Handler. And Ruth Handler's ghost kind of intuitively knew that was
the next step.
That was the next step for Barbie, was to become a real human. And what do y'all think of that?
I think of it as, for me, after I watched that movie, I turned to Amber the first time we watched it, and I said, I kind of feel a little ashamed of myself because I am not up to speed with women feminism and stuff like that. And she goes, well, that's what this is all about. Right. And I feel like for me, after seeing that movie and seeing like the things that, you know, hit me emotionally, that like, okay, my next level is becoming a real woman, you know?
A real woman, not this shadow of a woman that society expects of me.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
losing
what
your
I
expectations.
think a woman is, and there's actually a really great video. I think I saw it on YouTube. What is a woman? And this guy, he's a journalist, and he went around asking men and women of all different walks of life, what is a woman? And it was really interesting because it was so debatable. There was still no definitive answer at the end what a woman is. And it's really what you believe a woman is. And what I believe a woman is someone who nurtures. Right?
Okay.
So that's part of being a woman. There's other things about being a woman, but what is something that I can do to nurture other women, lift them up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's something that we all do here. I mean, that's part of the point of this podcast is that we are trying to lift
women up.
Lifting women up.
And I felt like it was a call to action.
But without bringing men down.
Exactly.
And I want to bring this back full circle. I got to think about my thought because I was thinking something while you were talking about that.
Gosh, we're using all these literary terms, call to action, full circle, symbolism. Y'all are making me proud. This old English teacher, y'all are making me proud.
So in the storyline, you're talking about what is a woman, but in the storyline towards the beginning, she talks, the narrator talks about the doctor and the lawyer and the president and all these women are Barbie. Mm-hmm. And Barbie is all these women.
Yeah.
So bringing that back around in the circle, you're talking about what is a woman? A woman is all of these things. Mm-hmm. There are different Barbies to represent all the different kinds of women that there can be. There's even a mother Barbie and a young girl Barbie. And there are male Barbies because they are Kens.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And so
term.
There's all these different kinds of women. So there is no singular definition of what is a woman. A woman is whatever you think a woman is. And it's all in how you frame that for yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the whole point. I really do. That a woman can be any of those things. A woman can be all of those things. And,
Yeah.
So you set yourself up when you do that and you say, and...
I know, and I'm like, I don't know where I was going. I don't know how to finish that.
Go forth and figure out who you are.
Go
forth and
just
figure
like
it out.
Ken had to go figure out who he was to be Kenough. Go figure out who you are
to be enough.
To be enough, and I think that's important. And on that topic, I think we have an episode coming up.
Yes, we do.
Actually, we have 2 episodes coming up that kind of tie into these, and we'll probably...
Don't we have a You're Enough episode coming up?
Yes, we do.
Maybe we should have swapped that one out for this one.
No,
next week is Personal Mottos, right?
Personal Mottos.
And Kristen's hosting that one.
No.
You're hosting it?
Oh, she is. You're right. Kristen is hosting that.
Mm-hmm.
Personal Mottos, and then I'm doing You Are Enough. Yeah. The next week after that. So those go quite well into this topic. So we'll probably be talking more about Barbie, more about Eckhart Tolle.
We might be talking about the same things. We may just not mention Barbie.
Barbie Tolle.
You never know.
Barbie Tolle.
From now on, it's going to be Barbie Tolle.
Barbie Tolle.
Instead of Barbie Hammer. We didn't even
Barbie,
talk about that.
We
did not even talk about
Barbie Hammer.
Yeah, really.
Barbie Hammer.
Really quickly before we go, we got to talk about Barbie Hammer.
Talk about Barbie Hammer. So apparently there is a thing. I don't know if it was a TikTok thing that started or something.
It was like because they were feeding off of each other.
Right. Well,
like
one of them they both came out on the same day, Oppenheimer and Barbie
they were
movie.
promoting each other as well, and the actors even started promoting each other.
Okay, because they're like polar opposite movies, right? One is a movie about Oppenheimer's invention of the atomic bomb or discovery of the atomic bomb or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you have Barbie and Barbie Land. And, external, internal, existential.
So it's like people plan to go see the movie the same day.
Yeah, like back to back.
Back to back. And there were even people that brought different sets of clothes, like pink clothes to wear to Barbie and then dark clothes to wear to Oppenheimer.
I did not catch that one.
Well, more people need to go see Oppenheimer because I looked at the domestic box office for this year and Barbie is number 2 out of all the movies this year.
Right.
It's already number 2. It's beat Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man, and The Little Mermaid, and Avatar, and Ant-Man, and Oppenheimer is at 8.
Opening weekend, though, more people went to see Oppenheimer than Barbie.
Really?
Yeah.
Because all us working women were too busy to go see it on opening night.
Maybe.
Well, what?
I'm sticking to that belief.
Yeah, like all of the Kens were at
Oppenheimer.
Right?
Oppenheimer.
I agree. I think both of those movies are very much worth watching, and I do plan to go see Oppenheimer. I just didn't have time to go watch them both in the same day. So,
because we're working women.
Yeah. Well, and there's only so much time.
It is
today.
so expensive to go to the movie theater, y'all.
Yes, it is.
Especially we saw Barbie and I do want to mention this before we go. We saw Barbie for the first time in XD.
Yes.
And then we saw Barbie again in just standard
I
definitions.
decided to watch it in standard because I remember going to XD and every time I sit in the theater, I mean, I'm 40 now, but I think the first time I saw XD movie, I was probably like 35. And I remember sitting there, I went by myself to see a movie, and I was like, God, it's loud in here. Like, this is really loud. But I still go because, I mean, the seat vibrates almost. It's so loud.
Yeah.
And I can actually hear what they're saying on the screen. I felt like in the standard, if we're going to compare, since I've seen them both back to back, the music on the standard was loud like XD. But the
speaking wasn't.
Yeah, the
dialogue was not.
Yeah, it was not as loud. And so I feel like if I was going to pay for it, I feel like the XD is worth it.
The extra money,
well,
for
and
sure.
It really wasn't that much more. It was like maybe $1 more per person.
Yeah,
I think.
It wasn't much more at all. And like we were in a huge theater with 1 million people, and it was so loud that you couldn't even hear the side conversations that people were doing, which was nice because before the movie started, like literally everybody was talking, and I'm like, it's going to be so loud. Kristen even commented
you could
how
hear
loud.
Everybody talking. Yeah.
Well, when we were in the XD, like there were so many people in there. Kristen even commented like, "Hey, it's loud in here." But then when the movie came on, you couldn't even hear it. But then you could hear all the side conversations in the standard movie, which is really interesting because I don't normally pay the extra to go see XD movies.
Right.
So I'm always hearing the side conversations.
And I think it's interesting that you heard more conversations in the standard movie. There were far fewer people
in that theater. Those are smaller. Yeah.
Well, but it was still, the theater was still pretty packed though. Like, well, I mean, like not every seat was taken like it was when we went to see the XD, but a lot of the seats, especially behind us, were taken.
Yeah.
And we sat like middle, I guess.
And as you mentioned, there were some teenage boys that were in there. We were speculating whether they had been to see Oppenheimer and then just snuck in to the Barbie movie.
I think they snuck in.
They were seat hopping. It seemed like they had to get up and move seats.
Because they were sitting behind us and then they moved to sit in front of us. So, yeah, I think that and there were people that came in after Barbie even started and they sat in the handicap section. So I think they were sneaking in too.
Could be. It could be. I don't know.
Not that I would know or anything.
But if that's a thing, Barbieheimer.
Barbenheimer.
Barbieheimer.
Or, yeah, something like that. I thought it was really funny, but when I first saw that, when I was doing my research, I was like, "What the heck are they talking about?"
Well, there is a whole YouTube video on I watched it on the comparisons and contrasts of Barbie and Oppenheimer and why people should go and see it in the same day.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to send that to you.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Well, I've seen Barbie twice now, and I watched it over and over in my mind.
Yeah.
And every time I read my notes, because I was like, my English teacher would be so proud of me, because at school I used to hate taking notes when we watched a movie, but I took lots of notes, and I can remember exactly where these scenes happen in my notes.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind going and watching Oppenheimer, and thinking about how it contrasts with Barbie.
Yeah, me too.
Might be a good blog post.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to leave it at that. And we're going to continue the conversation next week with personal mottos and values. And we hope you'll join us again.
Bye.
Bye.